November 18, 1986, a small funeral home in Philadelphia. The world's first supermodel lies in a casket, dead at just 26 years old. Not a single person from the fashion industry, an industry that once worshipped her, bothers to attend. This is the tragic end of Gia Carangi, a woman who had everything the world could offer, yet died with nothing but pain. But how does someone go from gracing the covers of Vogue and earning more money than any model in history to dying alone from AIDS-related complications? How does a shooting star burn so bright, yet fall so fast? This is the dark, unforgiving story of beauty, fame, addiction, and a broken system that chewed up and spit out one of the most stunning women who ever lived. Gia Marie Carangi was born on January 29, 1960 in Philadelphia. From the outside, she seemed like just another American kid, the youngest of 3 children, with an Italian father who owned a restaurant and an Irish-Welsh mother who stayed home. But beneath this normal facade lurked darkness that would haunt Gia for her entire short life. At just 5 years old, Gia experienced something no child should ever endure. She was sexually abused by a man. This traumatic event planted seeds of fear and pain that would grow like poison in her soul. But the abuse was only the beginning of her nightmare childhood. Gia's home was a war zone. Her parents' marriage was violent and unstable, filled with screaming matches and broken promises. When Gia was 11, her world completely shattered. Her parents divorced. But here's the cruel twist that would define her entire existence. Her mother, the person Gia loved most in the world, abandoned her. Think about this for a moment. Her mother took her 2 older brothers and left Gia with her father. Then, as if that wasn't devastating enough, her mother remarried and started a new life. Without Gia. Imagine being 11 years old, already traumatized by abuse, watching your mother choose everyone else over you. This abandonment became Gia's defining wound. Every relationship, every desperate act, every needle that would later pierce her skin, it all traced back to that moment when her mother walked away. High school brought rebellion. Gia found solace in David Bowie's music and joined the Bowie Kids, a group of outcasts who dressed flamboyantly and challenged social norms. She started exploring her sexuality, visiting underground gay clubs in Philadelphia, finding acceptance in spaces where being different was celebrated. But friends later revealed the heartbreaking truth. All of Gia's rebellious behavior was really just a desperate cry for her mother's attention. Every outrageous outfit, every act of defiance. She was still that 11-year-old girl screaming, "Look at me, Mom! Love me!" By 17, Gia was working part-time at nightclubs, serving drinks and dancing. She had grown into a stunning young woman, tall, with dark Italian features, piercing eyes, and an attitude that said, "I don't care about anything." But that attitude, it was pure armor, protecting a heart that had been shattered too many times. Summer 1978, Maurice Tannenbaum, a local photographer, walked into the nightclub where Gia worked. In a crowd of pretty girls, his eyes locked on her immediately. There was something different, something magnetic. He convinced her to pose on the dance floor and captured photos that would change everything. Those photos made their way to Arthur Elgort, a photographer for Bloomingdale's. What happened next was like something out of a fairy tale. Almost overnight, Gia became the talk of New York City's fashion world. She didn't even know it was happening, and at the time, the modeling industry was saturated with cookie-cutter blonde beauties. Everyone was tired of the same look. Then came Gia, with her dark, melancholic Italian features, perfect bone structure, and that mysterious "I don't give a damn" attitude. She was like a bolt of lightning in a clear sky. Gia moved to New York and signed with Wilhelmina Cooper, a legendary agent who treated her like the daughter she never had. Her first major shoot was with top photographer Chris von Wangenheim, nude, behind a chain-link fence, raw and powerful. By the end of 1978, just months after being discovered, Gia was already a household name in fashion circles. By 1979, she was appearing on covers of Vogue and Cosmopolitan. Luxury brands like Dior, Armani, and Versace were fighting to work with her. She was earning over $100,000 a year, an astronomical sum for models in that era. Fashion historians now call her the world's first supermodel, and for good reason. She had something no other model possessed, the ability to create emotions in front of the camera while maintaining an air of complete indifference. But success couldn't fill the void in Gia's heart. Fame, money, beauty. None of it could heal that 11-year-old girl who still felt abandoned. The childhood trauma, the constant search for love, the crushing loneliness. It all created a perfect storm. Gia had been using marijuana since age 13, but as her career soared, her drug use escalated. Marijuana became cocaine. Cocaine became heroin injections. She once said she felt deep loneliness. Every night after glamorous photo shoots, she returned to an empty apartment, alone with her pain. Her romantic life was equally turbulent. She chased relationships desperately, always pursuing women she admired, but never finding the love that could fill her mother-shaped hole. The drugs began affecting her work. She'd leave photo shoots to buy drugs, fall asleep in front of cameras, become irritable and unpredictable. By 1980, needle marks were visible on her arms during shoots for American Vogue. They had to be airbrushed out, but some still showed in the published photos. In March 1980, catastrophe struck. Wilhelmina Cooper, Gia's agent, mentor, and mother figure, died of lung cancer. This was the final straw. The one person who had truly cared for Gia professionally was gone, and her addiction spiraled completely out of control. She left Wilhelmina Models and signed with Ford Models, but was fired within weeks. Her career, which had seemed unstoppable, collapsed like a house of cards. Former friends in the fashion industry cut ties with her, afraid that association with her would damage their own careers. In February 1981, Gia returned to Philadelphia with her mother, attempting a 21-day detox program. It failed. She was arrested for crashing her car under the influence. In May 1981, at just 21 years old, she underwent hand surgery because she had injected herself in the same spot so many times that there was an open infected tunnel leading into her vein. Despite everything, Gia tried to make a comeback. She signed with Elite Model Management and even appeared on a final Cosmopolitan cover in April 1982, photographed by Francesco Scavullo. But those who worked with her could see the change. As Sean Burns, Scavullo's assistant, later said, there was an emptiness in her eyes. By late 1982, almost no one would hire her. Her final professional photo shoot was for a German clothing company in Tunisia, but she was sent home for heroin use. In early 1983, she left New York forever. Most of her modeling income had been spent on drugs. She worked at a clothing store, then as a cashier, then at a nursing home restaurant. By 1985, she was engaging in sex work in Atlantic City to fund her addiction. December 1985. Gia was hospitalized with bilateral pneumonia and diagnosed with AIDS-related complex. In 1986, AIDS was still poorly understood, with no effective treatments. It was essentially a death sentence. In fall 1986, she was found beaten and raped on the street, a final cruel assault on a life already destroyed by trauma. On October 18th, she was admitted to Hahnemann University Hospital in Philadelphia. 1 month later, on November 18, 1986, Gia Carangi died from AIDS-related complications. She was 26 years old, becoming one of the first well-known women to die from the disease. Her funeral was held 5 days later at a small Philadelphia funeral home. No one from the fashion industry attended. The same industry that had once celebrated her as their golden girl had completely forgotten her. But in those final moments, there was one small mercy. Her mother, who had abandoned her so many years before, finally stayed by her side. Gia Carangi's story isn't just about drugs or AIDS or the fashion industry's cruelty. It's about a little girl who was broken before she ever had a chance to heal. It's about how childhood trauma can echo through an entire lifetime, how success without love is hollow, and how society often destroys the very people it claims to celebrate. In 1998, HBO made a film about her life starring Angelina Jolie, who said she initially despised Gia but ended up confessing, "I'd like to date Gia. I'd want to be her lover." Even decades later, Gia's magnetism transcends death. She spent her entire life searching for something to fill the void left by her mother's abandonment, looking for love in all the wrong places, using substances to numb pain that never truly went away. Gia Carangi rose like a shooting star and fell just as quickly. When stars rise, the world watches, but when they fall, often all that remains is a sigh, and the haunting question of what might have been if someone, anyone, had truly loved that broken little girl.